This week on the Bangkok podcast, we delve back into our Hidden Gem series with a hidden gem that is green.
But first, the tuk-tuk scammers are actually giving out correct information this month. But that'll soon change, and they'll go back to their being scammy and spammy all over again.
Here's this week's episode of the Bangkok podcast. Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who got off a plane in 2001 in Dam Mueang Airport, wandered outside into the overwhelming heat, and wondered just what the hell I had gotten myself into.
And I am Evo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the Big Mango Part 2.
Yeah, we just spent 25 minutes sitting here doing the episode, and then Evo looked over and realized he wasn't recording. So now we're recording.
I'm an idiot. My apologies. Anyhow, let's pretend that didn't happen.
It happens. It's not like you were sitting down in the U.S. ambassador's residence and then realized you don't have the software on your computer to actually do the interview, which is what happened to Tony and I in the first season of the episode. So, hey, we've all been there.
All things considered, this was an easier screw up than having it be a really, really important one. It's a nice day in the park, which we're going to talk about in a moment.
Right. But before we get into that, let's talk about something that's coming up for the month of October, which is rather unique and something that a lot of people should know about, and that is that something in Bangkok is actually, for real, going to be closed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Now, for those who have listened to our show before, we have recently covered many of the scams that happens in Bangkok, and one of them is the classic tuk-tuk scam that takes place outside of the Grand Palace.
Yeah, so the Grand Palace, for those that don't know, is basically the gem in Bangkok's tourist attractions, and it's a huge place with massive four walls around it, and there's big doors on each wall, and it's not always clear which door is the entrance. So when tourists who walk up to the door, they're usually approached by a smiling Thai person saying, "Hey, are you going to the Grand Palace?" And when you say yes, they say, "Oh, it's closed today. There's a special holiday, or there's a special ceremony, or there's something. Come with me." And then the tourist gets taken on a ride. All the while, the Grand Palace is open because it's open 99.9% of the time. But October is a special, unique month.
Yeah, this will, on October, I believe it's the 26th, don't quote us on the exact day, but I think on October the 26th, it will be the end of the 1 year of mourning that Thailand has been in for the passing of the late King Rama IX, and the funerary ceremony begins, or takes place on that day. So prior to that, they have shut down places like the Grand Palace and the Green Mount Temple and a few other locations from visitors because they're prepping for this big ceremony.
Yeah, it's a huge deal because the Grand Palace is almost never closed, and to close it for an entire month kind of underscores the gravity of the situation. So the cremation of the late king will be taking place in Suan Luang, which is the giant sort of football field / ceremonial fairground across the street from the Grand Palace where a lot of royal ceremonies take place. And so, yeah, the whole area is going to be basically on lockdown for a month. Now, the first thing that came to my mind was how much money they're going to lose, because every person that goes into the Grand Palace, the admission to get into the Grand Palace is 500 baht. Right. And that place sees thousands and thousands of people every day. So that's obviously not the biggest issue here, but still, that's going to put a big chunk of red into the books of that area. So anyway. If you're coming to Bangkok, there is a ton of stuff to do, but for the month of October, don't put the Grand Palace on your list of things to do.
Yeah, because that's going to be off limit. I wonder what's going to happen to the literal busloads of Chinese tourists that gets dumped out there every single day. I wonder if they've got the memo. Hopefully so, and they can plan accordingly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be around 35 busloads of angry Chinese tourists, all with selfie sticks. Basically, every one of them has a staff.
That does not sound like a good time. So for this time, and the only time, the tuk-tuk driver's not lying to you.
And if you have any more questions about that, head over to, I don't know the blog post title, but Google Richard Barrow, the Grandmaster Flash of Bangkok tweeting and blogging, and he just put up a blog recently about what is actually going on and what to expect and what to avoid around all this shutdown stuff. So
I'll make sure we have a link to it in the show notes for this episode as well, because Richard has the good news about Bangkok, the actual real news about what's really happening. Turn to Richard Barrow. Don't turn to us. We're not that up on current events.
A couple of chuckleheads sitting on a bench looking at a park talking about nitrogen and say, oh, we already did that, but we didn't record. Never mind, we'll get to that
do it
again. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about one of these hidden gems in Bangkok. Now, the area that we are in right now is known as Samyan. Now, this area was first settled by Thai Chinese people, which isn't all that surprising, seeing that Bangkok's Chinatown is just it's about a kilometer away from us, just up the road. Now, in more recent times, Samyan has become synonymous with street food, supplying locals and attracting visitors from all over Bangkok. And then, stop me if you've heard this one before, the vendors were all given notice to pack up and move, and the bulldozers came in behind them, leaving many wondering exactly what project was underway.
And what was going to happen is where we are today. We are sitting overlooking a lovely new park in Bangkok. It's called Chulalongkorn University Centenary Park. Whew,
nice. That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. And it's only been open since March. It's one of the newest green spaces in Bangkok. We need a lot of green space in Bangkok. Greg will talk a little bit about that in just a moment. So not all of the hidden gems we're going to feature here on the program need to be old places that you should check out. Sometimes they're brand new, like less than 6-month-old new, like this park here is today.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see because Bangkok has one of the lowest per capita green spaces in the world in terms of square meters. Now, I think it's something like 2.8 meters of green space per person in Bangkok when compared to a place like Paris or Lisbon or some of these European cities that have in their 20s, like 24, 26 meters per person of green space. So Bangkok is really down on the low end. It's just basically a bunch of cement with a couple of little postage stamps of green scattered around it. So when a new park does go in, it's really, really nice. And the thing that I love about this park was that it's easy for the locals to say, we need more parks, we need more trees, we need more bike trails, blah, blah, blah. And for the powers that be to just sort of clear a square of dirt, throw some grass on it, put a couple of trees up and say, bam, there's your park, quit complaining. But a lot of work actually went into this one, and it's really beautiful. And you did some research on this, so you know a bit more about this than I do.
I dug into why this exists and what it was. So we're on property that was, again, as Greg, you mentioned earlier, the shop houses and marketplaces and the standard Thai area, but they were all renting from Chulalongkorn University, which is using property that was gifted by the royal family, hundreds of years ago. And to mark the 100th anniversary of the university, they built this park. But they're a university. They didn't just want to give a green space. They actually put research and thought into building a park that was, I'm just going to say, self-sustaining. Now, this park, it's on 28 Rai. I said it right this time? 28
Rai.
28 Rai, which is a certain land square footage. I don't know. It could be 20 acres, could be 40 acres. It's been a long time since I was on a tractor measuring acreage, so it's a big park.
It's like a real big football field, basically.
800 meters long by probably 300 and 400 meters wide.
Yeah, something like that.
It's this nice long rectangle. But the kicker is it slopes from east to west. Is that the right way? Yeah. No, from west to east, actually. So the west end of the park is raised over the east end of the park. And it's designed to be completely self-contained for water. So when water falls at the west end of the park, it travels through the system that's built here. There's little creeks on either side, plus the entire thing is one big natural sponge that percolates the water as it goes through. And at the bottom of the park on the east end, there's this pond, which acts as a catch basin for the leftover waters to come down to. Yeah. That pond is populated with, because this is Thailand, river shrimp and a whole bunch of little fishes. And their job is to clean the water that was already clean, going through all the soil and stuff here. And after that area, there is a tank that they have buried a little further east from that one, underneath the ground, which is where the leftover water is held. So this water is the water that falls in this park does not drain off either side. It is all completely used by the plants and the animals that are here, and the leftovers goes into a catch basin at the bottom of this tank. I'm not sure where that tank water goes to. Do they feed it back in to re-irrigate? I didn't get that far into it, but maybe that's the plan.
So basically it's just one giant self-contained ecosystem.
Yep, that's the whole idea here. That's the whole idea.
It's really neat.
And the trees that they've planted here are not just trees that soak up water.
Oh yeah, talk about the trees.
The trees are the cool spots. So here's Evo sharing a little bit of his botanic knowledge.
This is biology teacher Evo.
I was actually a biology major for a while.
Oh, were you?
And I know a lot about plants, especially plants that you dry in the. Never mind. I'm going to keep going. So the trees that are planted at the bottom of this catch basin down here, this natural system, are of the Fabaceae family, which includes things like peas and legumes. And plants of the Fabaceae family are nitrogen fixative. Their root system has these little bitty nodules on the end, and those little nodules grab the nitrogen that is contained within the water as it's flowing through. Nitrogen typically lives as a gas. 70% of the air that we breathe is nitrogen. So rather than just bubbling away up to the surface, these nitrogen fixative plants grab it, hold on to it, so they keep it in the soil. We need nitrogen to function. Life needs nitrogen. It's a very important chemical for the basis of life. So having nitrogen in the soil helps plants grow. When you put fertilizer on the ground, it's got nitrogen in it. That's why you do it. So this keeps the nitrogen here. So completely well thought out, understood. Let's build a park that will live not just now, but in 100 years will be this thriving, self-contained ecosystem as an example of how we might build other green spaces in the future.
Right, while all of us are gone because we will be wiped out in the coming war with machines, but that's a different podcast.
Other than Skynet, the plants will still be around.
Another thing that really impressed me about this park was, if you look, it's grass, and not just weeds, actual grass.
Grass you want to walk on.
Yeah, like I love Lumpini Park as much as the next guy. But if you walk on the quote-unquote grass at Lumpini Park and look carefully, it's actually not grass. It's weeds. It's called Japanese ragweed or something like that. But this park has actual, what we as Westerners would consider, lawn.
Yes.
Nice, soft, well-manicured green lawn, which is just really nice to see.
Yeah, think soccer field, think football field, think even golf course if you wanted to. Now it's not, there is no green. We're not chipping off to this. But yes, this is the place. This is the kind of park you would walk up to, take off your shoes, and walk on the grass. Not that crap in Lumpini Park, which was the leaves themselves are the thickness of a ruler. Right? That's not comfortable to walk on. This is a nice, lovely, yes, please walk on me, play on me, roll around with your kid, get the kite out, throw the frisbee. This is the lawn you want for that sort of activity. There's only one problem with that, Greg.
What's that?
Sun.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, this is a new park, so the trees are not fully grown yet, so they're still kind of diminutive. But so there's not a lot of shade here. Now, that's kind of the bummer about always saying, we want more green spaces, we want more parks in Bangkok, come on. And then when they put them in, you're like, who wants to go outside? It's too hot to go outside. So it's a bit of a catch-22. They're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But still, though, when these trees get a bit, maybe in a couple more years, they're going to be much bigger and offer much more shade, which will make the entire place much more desirable to come and hang out at.
Yeah, for now it's a great spot. It's very sparsely populated just because it's an uncharacteristically beautiful day. We have bright blue skies outside. It's only, when we started this, it was only 28 C, so it wasn't terribly hot. That's still hot. Most people would prefer to be in the shopping center next door, which is where we're recording this from. Yeah. It's an outdoor shopping area.
And I'm just going to stand up real briefly right now and just look over the park. I see 1, 2, 3... I see 3 people in the park. In the entire expanse of the park, there's 3 people. So, okay, there's a couple of kids down there sitting under a tree, but that's it. So it's not heavily populated.
No. So if you want a nice time in the park, but you're afraid it'll be too crowded or somebody might, do something that would upset you or your family or your kid or bump in, nope. Come on down to Chulalongkorn University's Centenary Park, and you can enjoy your time.
Now, the reason why it's on our hidden gems list is because I think it's just easy to overlook these kind of things, especially parks. Because, for instance, near the Queen Sirikit National Convention Center, there's that nice park. I think it's called Benjakiti Park, that is a giant track around that big lake in the middle, and it's a really nice, if sort of smallish, park. But just west of that, about a year ago, they knocked down all the buildings for the Thai tobacco monopoly and opened up a huge new park, and almost nothing was said about it. There was a couple of stories in the newspaper, BK Magazine, a couple of websites here and there, but I mean, it's very easy to overlook, and I'll bet you almost no one in Bangkok, especially foreigners that I know, would know that this park is here, or if they do, it's sort of like, oh yeah, I think I read something about that, I don't know. So it's one of those things, it's easy to overlook for 2 reasons. One is because a lot of people don't go out searching for places to hang out in the sun. And 2, it's just I don't think they get the right amount of press. I mean, this place is a really nice place, and it should be spoken of a little bit more. So that's why we're talking about it.
One of the interesting things about this. I mentioned earlier that there was like this 100-year plan for this park, but it's not just the park itself. Chulalongkorn University has a plan for this entire area, and having a nice centralized park to have an anchor establishment with is part of their grand plan. But the ultimate plan, Greg, if you can believe this, is to turn this whole area, the Samyan area, into Thailand's version of Silicon Valley.
Really?
Yeah, now that's a bit of a stretch for me, but I'm going to read a quote that was written here by a name I'm going to butcher. I apologize in advance. Wasanu Supsambol, and she's the Vice President for Property Management and Innovation here at Chulalongkorn University. Property Management and Innovation. Those two things shouldn't be tied together, but they are nonetheless, so I'll let her continue. And here's what she says. This is a huge plot of land in the heart of the city, an extremely rare find. A lot of people think that property development should be focused on profit-making, but actually our priority is to use this royally granted land to bring good to society. We looked at what is currently missing from Thailand and came up with the concept of an intellectual society, a space for building a green, innovative, and smart city. We hope this can be an example project for the country to pave the direction that Thailand should be heading towards. In 20 years, Samyan will be the hub for technology and innovation. It will be a great example for Bangkok and even the world to follow.
Sounds very nice.
It sounds very Thai. It sounds like a very Thai official. Let me talk for 20 minutes and kind of not say anything.
It sounds lovely. Just keep in mind that it's the year 2017 and we're supposed to have like 300 kilometers of rail lines throughout the city, and we have like 7. So, it's a nice plan, a good idea, and I'm sure it comes from a good place. But like with most things in Thailand, and most things in life, speaking as a jaded old man, I'll believe it when I see it.
I will say this, as someone who's worked in the innovation field before bailing on his home country, it is very hard to force innovation on a citywide scale. Universities can definitely play a part. They have a role to play, but universities, when it comes to innovation, are focused more on research and what's good for the university most. The government obviously has a role to play because they can do easings of various regulations and taking tax incentives, other things like that. But the biggest one is actually the businesses, the innovators, those spaces that are happening. It's very difficult to get those 3 groups working together because they have extremely different goals and objectives.
And another reason why this park is sort of exciting to me, it feels weird to be excited about a park, but there's not a real good way to say this without sounding kind of like a judgmental jerk, sort of like the expat specialist on every bar stool that you run into down in Nana Plaza.
Yes.
But I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of really grand vision and nice ideas and stuff, especially in Bangkok. A lot gets talked up and it doesn't actually come to fruition, or if it does, it's not where it needs to be. And I think that a lot of places, institutions, facilities in Thailand and Bangkok, when they open, it'll take them about 5 years to get up where they should have been when they opened, like ready for what their idea was. But it's just really nice to see something that wasn't slapped together, that had clearly a lot of thought put into it and a lot of long-term planning went into it. So it's kind of refreshing to see this, and I hope it's sort of indicative of future trends. Fingers crossed.
And obviously the success of this place will be closely tied into what else happens around it. So just on the other side behind us here to the north, there's that ZY Walk area we just walked through, which, how would you describe that interesting little area?
Weird place. It's like you stepped into a little village in China was either built and abandoned,
yes,
or built and never moved into. It's sort of like those. Have you heard about those cities in China?
The ghost cities.
Yeah, the ghost cities. They build an entire city and then just no one lives there because it was a make-work project. But it kind of reminds me of that, and it looks really nice. But there's nothing there. There's like 2 restaurants, and that's it.
Yeah, it will eventually be gorgeous, assuming that it actually gets filled out.
Yeah.
3 to 4 story Chinese-focused architecture, which again is playing homage to the original settlements of this area.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Right over there is where I shot that commercial, which we're going to be talking about in a future show. And it was my first exposure to this area. But it's just an amazing. It's that weird dichotomy again, because here you have this beautiful, clearly what looks like a Chinese temple, and then behind it are these giant skyscrapers. So it looks like any Chinese city that has been overtaken by the encroachment of gentrification and Western culture kind of a clash together. I hope it goes really well. There's another spot on the other side called what's another one name? My Thai is terrible here. Suan Luang Square, which is on the other side of that, kind of like a container village, if you will, with interesting things that are taking place.
Well, like shipping containers?
Yeah, building out of shipping containers. Art Box has moved over here, so it's pretty much it's an eating establishment mostly, although there are a few small businesses. There's a big development going on the southern part as well, which is going to be called Samyan Mitr Town. That's taking
Samyan
place.
what?
Samyan, M-I-T-R. How do I pronounce that? Mitr.
Meat.
Samyan Meat.
Yeah, the
Town.
R is silent. I'm
Why did they put
guessing
the R in there?
because it comes it's a transliteration thing, and the word comes from probably Sanskrit. So when you write it in Thai, at the end of the word, it has
You put the little thingy on it, right?
Yeah, the garan on top of the r, which kills the sound.
But this isn't in Thai. This is in English. Why put the R in?
Well, the same thing when they say sing ha beer. It's not sing ha beer.
Yeah,
it's
sing.
sing.
Right.
The ha-hib and salah sound on the end is silent. Anyway, this is probably something better spoken of about by Stu J. Raj
Likely so, yeah.
or Rickard.
Stu,
Instead
why is the R there? Rickard, why is the R there? I want to know.
Instead of these chuckleheads who don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, yeah, when you see something like that, it's usually just pronounced mit.
Okay, all right. So
there you go.
That's coming up.
Anyway, so we're looking across the other side of the park. There's like a lot of old abandoned slums. And like we talked about with our episode on the Scala, our first hidden gem show, this land is just too valuable to be ignored for much longer. So all of this is going to go, and expect to see some serious money in there. But in the meantime, we got this nice little park to hang out at.
We may be at the beginning of the early stages of the new innovation hub in Thailand. CU is betting on it. I'm not betting against them because I'm not a betting man, but it will be interesting to watch this entire area grow.
Yeah, so it's really nice. This is a good start. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. But I'm always optimistic and hopeful. It's my default setting. But still, it's good to see so much thought be put into something here, and it's a good start, I'd say.
You know, the thing I put a lot of thought into every single week, Greg, is everyone's favorite segment of the program.
Nice.
And that is called Love, Loathe, or Leave. It's where we discuss one little aspect of living in Bangkok and determine whether that is something we love about living in Bangkok, something that we loathe about being in Krung Thep, or is so terrible we will eventually be forced to leave because of it. And this week, it's my turn to offer it up, Greg.
What do you got for me?
Dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit.
Now you're talking about the orange/red/pink fruit that looks sort of like something Jim Henson would have made back in the day.
It is definitely a Fraggle Rock egg. It is pink, and it looks like it has dragon scales coming off of it.
And you cut it open, and there's two varieties. You have either white meat with black seeds or very dark red meat with black seeds.
Yep, and it's just this weird... I mean, first off, when you see it for the first time in a marketplace, you say, good God, what is that thing? Because it doesn't look like it's going to be edible. And then, as Greg mentioned, you cut it open, it's like, that looks like ice cream cone with black sesame seeds inside of it. It just looks, like this, and you realize, oh my God, this is the most exotic fruit on the planet. It has this beautiful look on the outside, this white, especially the white and black one, that just the contrast of just, crystal clear white, pitch black on together, and you're thinking, this is it. I have found the most exotic food in the world. And you take your spoon, and you take a bite of it, and you put it in your mouth, and you go, oh, it's like a flavorless melon.
Yeah, I can see that, but I love it. I call it, it's kind of like the celery of the fruit world. You chew on it.
Not helping.
No, you chew on it, and you're like, there's nothing here. There's just this water and cellulose.
Yeah.
But no, I love dragon fruit. I think it's great. I will agree with you. I will give you. There's not a lot of taste. It doesn't have a lot of zing to it.
Right.
But it's kind of like beer. If it's the colder it is, the better it is. You put it in the fridge overnight. Really cold dragon fruit. It's very refreshing.
All right, so we got to get this guy drinking better beer because good beer should not be drinking super, super cold. But regardless of that,
How dare you?
That's fine. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I think it's great.
I'm putting it in the loathe category
Really?
because I'm just so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. This is why I am firmly convinced that there is no such thing as guided evolution. There is no creationism put on because if an intelligent being designed that fruit, it would have tasted like it looks,
Right.
and it doesn't.
Maybe an intern designed it or something.
Oh, yeah, it must have been handed off, right? Yeah,
The intelligent design
on
intern.
the seventh day,
Well, that's
he
my
rested
first
him.
try. The teacher's like, well, not a bad try. It's all right. We can still use it, but, it's not like KFC burger or anything like that.
Well, okay, you can like that. I can like the rest of that. Hey, before we take off, I just want to make a comment here. So not only did I screw up the recording of this episode, why it's the second time we've done it, but prior to that, Greg and I did an entire show just for our patrons and released it on our Patreon-only feed. It's a long episode of us talking about a variety of things, such as my reconnecting with my alma mater here in Bangkok and your visit to looking at pigs' heads at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Don't forget the
believe.
entrails, yeah.
Lots of entrails, all of that. So
Good times.
that's available only to Patreons. In fact, we're doing this now every week. We've recorded about a dozen or so of these where it's a brand new full-length episode, just the two of us talking about some of the more interesting sides of our lives. We get a little more personal because it's a much smaller audience over there.
We could also cuss a bit more because most people are
Yeah.
adults. We assume.
That's true. We don't have
hope.
to say bad things over there.
Yeah. So it's really great to have Patreon as a source for this kind of stuff. And did you read that Patreon just got a big chunk of funding? And I forget how much it was.
Woo!
Several $1 million.
Right on.
Yeah. So they're growing, and I think it's such a great service. So we're really happy to be part of it, and we're very happy that our Patreons are patrons or Patreons.
They're patrons
Patrons
and
of
they go
Patreon?
to Patreon.
Well, whoever they are, we're very happy that they're supporting us on the show. And you can support us on the show, too. So if you'd like for us to say nice things about you on the show, or you just want to get the show early, as well as access to some special patron-only bonus content, head over to patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast and lend us your support. We really appreciate everyone who does. And thanks to you for listening to the Bangkok Podcast. If you have something on your mind or just want to drop us a line to say hello, please leave a comment on BangkokPodcast.com, or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, or a line. We're simply at Bangkok Podcast on all of those services. We're usually very good about responding to the comments you make to us there, or the praise you heap upon us. Please keep it coming. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok di krap!
Hang on, we got to do the tag at the end. too,
Yep,
right?
yep. I put my stuff in.
Okay, cool.
How do you want? I probably should have put yours in and think about it. Just simply.
I'll make it up.
Okay.